Hello and welcome to our webinar, Combat Summer Learning Loss, Join the Chief Summer Reading and Math Challenges. I'm Elizabeth Latanzio and I'm so glad you could join us today. We have three speakers for this webinar. Malbert Smith, he's the president of MetaMetrics, and he's also a research professor at UNC School of Education. I will be speaking, I'm the marketing manager here, and Dave Lines, who's the senior product manager, will be speaking. Looking on logistics, if you experience any technical difficulties, please call that number on the screen and we'll help you to resolve those as soon as possible. If you have any questions, please submit those questions to the Q&A moderator that's located in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and please direct those questions to the host. And when submitting your question, please include your full name and organization. We'll keep your name and organization confidential. We just want this information. If we run out of time for questions at the end, we can then follow up with you directly. And then one final note, if you could please put your phone on mute just to limit the amount of background noise. Now I'm going to pass it along to Malbert, who's going to walk us through the agenda.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited about this presentation because I believe it's one of the big areas of what I call low-hanging fruit for reducing the achievement gap. Let me walk you briefly through the agenda. We're going to talk about the goal of education very briefly, the problem, and in particular we're going to focus on summer loss. And then we're going to talk about examples that we have worked with other states, and during that part, Elizabeth Latanzio will lead that part. And then I'm very excited because after she finishes, we're going to introduce to you what we're doing in math. All of you know the importance of summer loss, and math is going to be new this year for us, and we're really excited about what Dave Lines has produced, and you will see that at the end, and then we'll take questions and answers. So let me start with the goal of education. I think the goal of education is best summarized by our Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan. Secretary Duncan says if we can dramatically increase high school graduation rates, if we can dramatically increase the number of graduates who are college and career ready, that's what this is all about. Everything's a means to that end. That's the holy grail here, or our students being prepared to be successful. Unfortunately, as you know, we lose about 1.2 million students a year that drop out of school, and those who do graduate, about 40% that go to community colleges end up euphemistically in what I call a developmental education, which is another word for remedial education. Also, about 20% of our high school graduates that go off to college and universities end up in developmental education. So clearly, we have much room to improve on, and one of the areas where I think we can be most successful is on this summer loss. You see now a graph. Depending on which reading researcher you read, they either call it summer loss, summer slide, or summer fade. But all three terms can be used interchangeably, and it refers to the phenomena that many of our kids lose ground over the summer. I'll point out to you four at least things that jump out to me from this graph. The x-axis is grade levels, kindergarten through fourth grade. The y-axis is reading scores, and there are two lines on this graph. The bottom line is the free and reduced lunch kids, and the top line is the kids who are not on free and reduced lunch. The first thing that appears is that we have a gap. We know our free and reduced lunch kids come not only from a poverty of income, but they also come with a poverty of words. And so you see this initial gap. The second thing I would point out to you that if you look during the academic year, during the school year, and you look at the growth trajectory of those free and reduced lunch kids as well as the kids above them, we actually get them on a fairly parallel track. That is, we have all students gain while they're in school. Our free and reduced lunch kids are gaining about at the same rate as depicted on this graph as our upper income kids. In fact, I was just reviewing some data with North Carolina Department of Public Instruction the other day, and we actually are showing that we're growing our free and reduced lunch kids faster than we're growing some of our other kids, so these initial gaps we're actually reducing, which is a good thing. But the third thing I would point out to you is that what happens during every summer. If you look at that graph, all those gains that we get that during the school year dissipate over the summer. These kids go home to what I call text-free zones. They're in environments where there are no books, no magazines. So all those gains that we experience with our kids during the summer, many of these kids lose ground, which leads to the fourth point. If you add those contiguous summers up, what started out as an initial gap into kindergarten actually gets exacerbated, and it's larger by the summer of the 4th grade. In fact, there are a number of researchers at Hopkins now that are arguing up that 50% to 2/3 of the achievement gap can be explained by 12 contiguous summers that our low-income kids are not exposed to instructional material. Now, when Dave gets to math, you're going to see a different picture, because on math, I guess math is non-discriminatory. It impacts all of our kids, the upper-income kids, lower-income kids, all kids. But the summer loss, when it comes to reading, negatively impacts really just our free and reduced lunch kids. So that's the sad news. That's the bad news. Now, here's the good news, and I'll go to this next slide. If you look at some of the research that's been done most recently by James Kim at Harvard, we can actually do something about summer loss. And what he found is that if you pay attention to 2 really important features, one is you need to pay particular attention to the interest level of children. This is the summer, and if you don't find books that a student is interested in, or if they can't find books, they're not highly likely to read them. So first thing that we have to pay attention to is interest level. The second thing, once we pay attention to interest level, we need to pay attention to the match between the difficulty of the book and the reading ability of the student. If the book is way too easy, the student's not going to be exposed to new vocabulary, new syntactic structure. If the book is way too hard, the student could get frustrated and simply disengage, and especially since a lot of the kids we're trying to reach through this program are actually students that may not have the parental support and the scaffolding support that many of our kids have. But what Kim and others have found, and recently a book that just came out by Dick Allington have found, that if you can pay attention to those 2 features, in particular interest and matching the reading ability to the difficulty of the book, you can eliminate and minimize this summer slide that occurs every summer. So we built a free resource, and this sits a number of states, about 14 states I think right now are using this. And by the way, everything we're talking about today is free. I want to emphasize that. And what we're trying to do is just to help you as a State Department to scale this and to bring it out to all students. So we built a free resource called Find a Book that allows you to put in your Lexile measure and your grade level. If you're a state that doesn't report out Lexiles, we didn't want that to be a showstopper. So we also, if you don't have Lexile measures, or if your student or parent has forgotten their Lexile measure, there's a simple question. We ask you what grade you're in, and are you reading on grade level, or is it too hard or too easy? And then we can try to approximate where we think the Lexile level of the books that you need to be reading at. The second screen over is actually interest genres. This is where we pay attention to interest. So a student, we could all be 5th graders in South Carolina, 5th graders in North Carolina, and we could have gotten our test scores. We may even, in fact, have the same Lexile score, but each of us could have a different interest profile. You can think about this as building your own playlist. So Elizabeth could be interested in mysteries and nonfiction. I might be interested in science and sports. So you click on what you're interested in. There's subcategories under each one of these. So actually there's a couple of hundred interest genres in here. You're just seeing the broad categories here. And then the next screen over will actually build your personalized reading list. So if we had been looking for books between 600 and 750 Lexiles, you'd get a personalized reading list with the art jacket displayed, a little description of the book. And one of the features we've built into it, it will actually, it will point you to the closest public library from where you're sitting. This works great in our urban areas. As you get out into some of the rural states, if they are not a member of WorldCat, it doesn't work in those parts of the world at this point in time. But this is an important point I want to emphasize. What we're trying to do is connect students to the public library, get them to the library. Libraries need to be our biggest ally as we adopt Common Core and we go to higher and more rigorous reading standards and looking at text complexity and having students read at a higher level, and especially nonfiction text. Our librarians can become our biggest resource and allies, and we want to work closely with our libraries to make that happen. So what we've built here is a free resource, and here's the Chief Summer Reading Challenge. You can go to this website, and you can see state samples. You can see the 14 states we've worked with. You can see the tools, the resources. You can see all the free resources. And this data I've shared with Gene Woolhoit a couple of years ago, and that's when he said we need to make this a Chief's Challenge and encourage every State Department of Education to do this. again, recognizing we're doing so much during the school year, but we lose kids during the summer, and especially since this doesn't cost anything, it's just taking your testing data, leveraging it across the public libraries, and getting that involved. I'm going to now shift over to Elizabeth because she works with all of our state departments, with your Chief Information Officer, your Public Information Officer, really to build you tools and resources to customize all of this for you, because I've been in all 50 state departments of education, and if it's one thing I've learned is most of our state departments don't have enough staff and resources to do all the wonderful and good things you're doing. So we've tried to build all of these tools and resources, and Elizabeth and her team will help customize it for you. So I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth now to walk you through that.
Sure. Thank you. So this past year was our launch of the Chief Summer Reading Challenge through our partnership with CPSSO. And it was our first year, and we had 14 state participants. Those are listed on the screen there. And we worked with those state participants to really customize their summer reading program. So here were the summer reading resources and tools that we used to customize the summer reading program. So the Find a Book tool that Malbert just took you through, we customized that by putting the state logo on there. And if you don't have a designer on hand, we can help you develop the logo. The example on the right there is the Find a Book Illinois. We actually helped develop that logo, so we can help you with the logo development and then customize the Find a Book tool by including that logo and having a unique URL. We can also help customize flyers, and these would be flyers providing information about lexile measures and Find a Book and summer reading, and they would be directed for parents, educators, and librarians. We also can customize web banners, bookmarks, and certificates of participation. We also help with outreach, so anything from press releases to letters to educators, letters to parents, we can help you draft those. And we help with TV spots. So Malbert actually went down this past summer to Kentucky to film this PBS local Kentucky show with Bill Goodman. It's right there on the screen. It was Malbert and the Kentucky state librarian. So he's happy to do this for any state that needs it. We also provide a summer reading pledge tool. So this pledge tool was something we provided last year, and it will be live on Find a Book in April. Parents, educators, students can go on and basically pledge to read, and then we can report back to states the number of individuals that pledged to read and the number of books that were pledged to read. States have really liked this as a way to gauge participation in their initiatives. And we provide a summer reading portfolio. This summer reading portfolio is something we provide for every participant. It provides an overview of the program and the resources that were developed and the media outreach. And it also provides pledge data that I had just mentioned there, and along with also traffic trends, so an increase from the number of visits from your state to lexile.com and the top 5 cities that visited lexile.com. So again, this has been viewed as states as a way to really gauge participation. I also want to talk about our partner product incentives. So we have 3 partners who have generously donated their products to serve as summer reading incentives. These partners are Achieve, and they've Achieve 3000 has donated their Kid Biz and Teen Biz 3000 products. Capstone has donated their My On Reader products, and Scholastic has donated their Scholastic Reading Counts. So these products can be used by a state for prize or reward for a certain summer reading event or contest, and North Carolina actually used this last year and did a press release. So if you're looking for a state example to model, you can go to our state samples page there on the Chiefs Challenge webpage and look at North Carolina and see how they did it. I also want to add that this isn't like you have to pick one product. You can pick all of these products. So you can get 4 different schools these free products, and these are all very popular programs that use lexile measures to differentiate instruction. Now I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a state participant in the initiative. This state would be Kansas and their Kansas Read program. It was a really successful program. They had interdepartmental collaboration between the Department of Ed and the Governor's Office. They also did a great job with their promotion of summer reading from their events and media outreach. And they also promoted reading year-long, so they extended it past summer. Here's Recanvass Read, the website. So instead of just creating a web page on the Department of Ed, they actually created a separate website. You can see that Find a Book is mentioned in that kind of dark red circle at the top there, and also listed down as a resource. They also had a reading log and videos and bookmarks, and so they really provided their users with a great site. Here are some of the Recanvass Read materials that we developed. Again, these are flyers to kind of step-by-step instructions for how to use Find a Book. They're also flyers with frequently asked questions for educators and parents, and that were used on the site. I also wanted to touch on the videos. So Kansas did a great job with getting local celebrities to do these PSAs. This is a screenshot of their website. If you were on the website and were to scroll down, you'd see about 5 more of these videos. As I mentioned, they got local celebrities from football, basketball coaches. I know they had one that was an Olympic athlete from Kansas, and the top one there is Governor Brownback and the First Lady, and all of these, PSAs talk about the importance of summer reading and targeted reading and using Find a Book. And here is the media outreach from Recanvass Read. They did several events. They had a kickoff event at a library where they got the mascots from local colleges involved, and they also had a ending event at the governor's mansion where they had a luncheon and invited the top readers from the state to honor them, and they had local restaurants come in and cater, and they really got the community involved in their summer reading initiative. Just to recap a couple things of Recanvass Read. So Commissioner DeBacker coordinated a state-level campaign led by top education leaders, including Governor Brownback. She promoted the use of personalized reading lists based on student interest and reading skill level. She also personalized mailers to teachers, parents, administrators, and librarians, promoting the use of free online resources like Find a Book. And she sustained the Recanvass Read over time by promoting it through other state-level work. Now I want to talk about what's new for summer reading this year. So if you were with us last year, you know that the partner product incentives, we only had two products. This year we have 4, so we've doubled the number of partner product incentives. We also worked with states, as I mentioned, providing pledge data, and when we worked with states, we got feedback on different formats they wanted the pledge data, so we've worked to accommodate that and have different exporting formats for pledge data. And we have a development team here that is working on a vocabulary tool that will be live for summer 2013. This vocabulary tool will provide vocabulary lists for books on Find a Book, and these lists will be specific to the book. The development team is working with some outside respected researchers to kind of come up for the criteria for choosing these words, but we're really excited about this tool, and it will be live for summer 2013, and we think it'll just be a great resource for parents teaching their children vocabulary and encouraging them to read. We also published a Kentucky case study. This Kentucky case study, and I know there are several participants from Kentucky, so I know this is going to make you proud. We worked with Kathy Mansfield, and she wrote basically down everything she did for their Kentucky initiative. The reason why we were looking at Kentucky is they had the highest number of pledges submitted to read and the highest number of individuals that pledged to read. So we wanted to see exactly how she was getting the message out, and so we worked with Kathy, and here's a Kentucky case study that's published that would be a good resource for planning for summer 2013. And now I'm going to pass it over to Dave, who's going to talk about our math initiative.
Okay, well, thanks, Elizabeth, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. So why do we need a summer math program? I think all of you probably have a pretty good idea of why we need a summer math program. But just to go over some of the data that we've been looking at. So the research indicates that, first off, summer math loss is much more pronounced than summer reading loss. So as with summer reading loss, you might see students losing, about 1 month of grade level equivalency over the summer. With math, you would see more around 2.5 months of grade level equivalency, which is really pretty significant. Another thing we've seen is that students lose math ability regardless of household income level. So as Malbert mentioned earlier, where the summer reading loss is more pronounced with the lower income students, for math it's kind of a equal opportunity problem. We see it across the board. Another thing that we've noticed is that parents are more likely to read with their children than they are to practice math skills. And as a parent of 3 small children, this makes perfect sense to me. I read to them every night at bedtime. We don't do a lot of math at bedtime, and we probably should. And part of the reason for this, I think, is that math practice is less intuitive and more technical than reading practice. Again, with reading, it's, I think, in some ways a simpler problem. You find a book that matches the student's interests and level, and you read with them or help them read. With math, it's a little bit harder, and parents are a little less likely to know, where to start. So to summarize, on average, all students, regardless of socioeconomic status, are losing about 2.6 months of grade level equivalency in mathematical computation over the summer months each year. So that's not a very good statistic there. This is a chart here that shows the effect of cumulative summer loss relative to uninterrupted growth expressed in quantiles. This chart was put together by one of our senior researchers here at MetaMetrics, Gary Williamson, and you'll see that the blue line there indicates the growth trajectory based in quantile measures without any summer loss. And the red sawtooth line below it factors in summer loss each summer. And again, as we saw with reading, as the student moves forward through the grades, the problem gets worse. So by 12th grade, what starts out as a less significant problem ends up being about 300 quantile measures of total loss, which is extremely significant when you look at the total gains. We're only around 600 quantile measures. So you're losing about half of it over the summer. So that's a fairly significant amount of loss. So the good news, we've put together a program called the Chiefs Summer Math Challenge that we think could help significantly address the problem of summer math loss. The Summer Math Challenge will be an email-based math skills maintenance program, so that the parents will sign up and receive daily emails from quantiles.com. We will focus on reinforcing skills acquired during the previous school year. So we're not really looking to try to have the parents teaching their students any new skills. We're really predominantly focusing on helping the parents help their kids not lose the skills that they were taught the previous year. For this first summer, we're going to be targeting students entering grades 3 through 6 in the fall. So that would be students who had just completed grades 2 through 5. And like with Find a Book, we're going to be basing our entry level on the student's quantile measure. However, if they don't have a quantile measure, similar to Find a Book, the parents will just be able to enter the student's grade level, and we'll give them a starting quantile measure based on that information. And the way it will work is that there will be one math concept addressed per week through daily emails of activities and resources. So to start the week, the parents will get a sample email, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. It'll have an activity in it, and then throughout the week we'll supplement that activity with resources and links to other websites that will help with that. And then the parents will be able to visit quantiles.com first to register for the daily emails, but then to follow up, they'll be able to track their students' progress and provide feedback on the program. And as the summer progresses, they'll be able to sort of, check off as they finish each weekly concept. So this is sort of a sample of what one of the daily emails might look like. This email is would go to the parent, of course, as I mentioned before, and this would be week 4 for a rising 4th grader or a student who's just completed 3rd grade. And the concept for this week is place value. So helping the students understand where the digit appears in the number applies to the total number there. So, and in this case, what we're asking the parents to do is to just notice numbers, and particularly 2- and 3-digit whole numbers as they appear, everywhere, to state the number, to read it out as 232 rather than saying 232, and to, throughout the week, help their children understand the place value of the numbers. And then we'll have links in the email to more resources that would be available. And here is a sample web page. So this is a design of what the web page might look like. And when the parents signed in, they would be able to see the children that they've registered for the program. And we'd have a square sort of for each week, and so you'd be able to see how far through the program your kids have progressed. And if you click on the square, you'd be able to get more information about that weekly concept. And so the development timeline for the Chiefs Summer Math Challenge, we will have a Summer Math information page, which will be live on quantiles.com on Pi Day, which is March 14th. On May 1st, we would have our registration system live on quantiles.com, so parents could start enrolling their children in the program. And then starting the week of June 24th, parents would begin receiving the Summer Math emails.
Great. I think I'm going to lead the questions. I also wanted to add, actually, before we start on questions, that for the Chief Summer Math Challenge on the marketing side, we'll produce collateral and all the materials you need to support that initiative, similar to what we've done for the summer reading side. In terms of questions, we actually had some submitted. So the first one is, how does the CSLP program fit into this initiative? That is a great question. So the CSLP is the Collaborative Summer Library Program. The majority of the states that we worked with participated in the CSLP program and also the Chief Summer Reading Challenge. We really view the initiatives as complementary. Our initiative is not intended to replace anything you're doing on the summer reading side. It's intended to supplement it. So really they fit very nicely together, and we've like I said earlier, we've worked with states that have done both of the programs. If
I could add a comment, I've been to a lot of the states and have done a lot of the activities related to conferences related to summer loss. And I think where it works best, you do have a partnership with the librarian, the state librarian in Kentucky. I thought Commissioner Holliday, along with Wayne Knox, just had that was a wonderful partnership. We did the same thing in Kansas. Diane DeBacker, commissioner there, had the state librarian. In fact, everything we did from the PR on involved everyone. We did the same thing in Hawaii. So to the degree that you can partner, I think the libraries should become our best partners with our school systems in this, and trying to, again, to get more students and more parents into the library. So these partnerships are a great way to go. And we find that parents really, when these test scores go home, they're looking for actionable information. So state superintendents sending information back to the parents, this helps take that testing information that may not have been actionable and actually helps them connect it to reading over the summer.
We had another question come in, and that question is, what if my state does not report out Lexile or quantile measures? Can we still participate? Absolutely. if Lexile or quantile measures aren't reported out on your state assessment, chances are that still many students in your state are getting Lexile measures through other programs. So they still have those Lexile measures, and even if they don't, there's tools to estimate on the Find a Book side and on the Chief Summer Math Challenge side to estimate those measures for them if it's not known. And of course, as Malbert had said before, all of these resources are free. So, whether you're a state that reports out Lexile and quantile measures or not, all of this customization will be free.
Okay. What about school library? I'm sorry, I was reading a different question. Where were we?
Here we go.
What about school? How about school librarians? Some children, especially those low-income students, only see their school librarian. That's a great point. I think that, again, librarians, especially if you go back and read the ELA standards within the Common Core State Standards, I think librarians should be our biggest champions, and really teachers need to have a close alliance with librarians. Fortunately, librarians, this is their core skills is matching kids to books by taking into consideration a number of things: interest, art jacket, developmental appropriateness, the text complexity. And so I think most of the time that librarians are ideally suited for this as well. And most libraries now have all of the content through Bowker or through EBSCO or through Cengage. Most all of the articles now, well, not say most, hundreds of millions of articles have been Lexile. So it's not only just books, but matching students to, when they're doing research projects, matching students to the appropriate text and helping them understand how to select text. And I think librarians are ideally suited for that. So I think that is a big asset to have librarians like that.
There are a couple of questions that came in that we think would also be good to put to the group and to hear you all's feedback, at the state level, what your work has been. So one question that came in was, how do you get student buy-in when you're promoting student interest? And I think that's a great question. Is there any of the participants that would like to comment or say what they do at the state level to get student buy-in?
While that question is being pondered, this is a huge issue, which is how do you get students involved. One of the things I do when I work with students is I try to find what they're passionate about, find out what their hobbies are, what their interests are, what TV shows they like. And again, librarians are very adept at this. But I think finding out those hot spots of interest, we're psychometricians here and deal with n's of large numbers. But most of my examples have to deal with an N of 3 with my own 3 children as they were growing up. And each one had different interest profile, and really feeding into their passion was an important thing as a parent that we did, and it's an important thing that we do in school. I think not only librarians, but I think teachers need to help students find what they're passionate about and help them explore topics and interest in current events that might kindle an interest that maybe they didn't even have. But I think that's a huge part of the student engagement, and making sure that you're sensitive to that and paying attention to it is pretty important.
We have another question. What summer math programs are currently being done at the state level? That is a fantastic question, and we would like to know that too. We've done research and into different states and what's being used, and nothing has really come up. But if you're a state that has a summer math initiative, we would love to hear about it. And
what we found when we were unable to really find existing programs that were scalable, that were free, and based upon research, and so that's why Dave and his team and our teams of our math teachers here came up with this approach. There may be others as well, but at least when we go through the checkoff, we wanted something free, that was easy, that was based on the research, that could make a difference. That's why we designed this. There was also a question I saw on the reading. What grades is this summer reading for? K4 was the question mark. Actually, it's K12. The importance of reading does not diminish over time. And in fact, if you look at the reading growth trajectories of students, we need to be as cognizant of summer slide and summer loss in the middle school years as we do in the elementary school years. Obviously, the longer we wait to eradicate these achievement gaps, the harder it is to eliminate, but that doesn't negate the fact that we should be doing it every year. In fact, I was talking to a South Carolina educator earlier today, and we talked about this middle school. If you look at NAEP scores, for example, typically on the NAEP scores across our states, reading, we do pretty well on that 4th grade. And then the 8th and 12th grade is where many people call the slump, the middle school slump. And largely, if you look at the NAEP scores, when I look at 8th grade reading scores across the nation, a lot of it is a vocabulary issue, and the only way to grow your vocabulary is to read more. So the middle school and the high school are very fertile areas that we need to make sure that they're reading. And when you go to find a book, you will see you can the menu goes down to 12th grade. And so again, I would encourage this not to be just a K4. And I would another thing, working with a number of states in North Carolina, in Kansas, I think in Kentucky, Florida, they've used this as the cornerstone, not just for a summer program, but for year-round reading. Students are home during Christmas. We need to promote year-round reading, not just over the summer, but although this was designed for the summer, so paying attention to it year-round and having a campaign is very important. West Virginia is doing that as well.
We have another question. So for the summer reading program, if the state librarians are already doing their summer program theme, how do you see us begin to work together for the summer reading program?
Great question again. I think a point of intersection that's very important, especially if you want parental engagement and parental involvement, is one of the things that every parent is focused on is how well is my child doing on, historically, the NCLB, No Child Left Behind assessments, your statewide assessments. And as we move to the Common Core assessments, depending on which state you're in, you're either going to be a part of SBAC or you're going to be part of PARC, or you may continue with your own state tests. But parents, when they see these test scores, they want actionable information. So I think the state librarians connecting up with the state departments of education and talking about when these test scores go home, make sure that we put information in there to connect them to the public library is pretty important in terms of doing that. It helps when these test scores go home. Most of the time, test scores that go home, I'm a big believer, we're a psychometric research firm, but I believe we actually do too much testing in our country. We need to do less testing and do more with the information of the test we give. So one of the benefits of connecting up with your assessment folks at your State Department is connecting those test scores to the world of text. And again, through Common Core and the Lexall framework, you have a great roadmap for doing that.
We had another question. So since this is a free resource, how can we let more parents know about this, especially for the math part? These are great questions. So, you know, I think working with different communications officers and communications directors, there's kind of the sentiment, you say it again, and you say it louder. And so I think trying to get the word out in as many publications, newsletters, letters home is really key. If you look at the Kentucky case study, that's basically what they did. They tweaked the message here or there, but they just put it in so many publications and really got the word out. I think putting on the websites, I think listservs, I know many states have used those to reach out to librarians, to now, and I know the question was specifically for parents, but I think, you know, reaching out to educators can also reach out to parents. If the educator's aware that this is going on, then they can connect it up to the parents.
If I could just punctuate that one point of repetition, I think that is a huge area. So often we communicate one time and we think we've communicated, and I think most of these, really your cost as a State Department is in your sunk cost, but it's in cost of repeating the message and making sure that parents hear this. One of the things we did in North Carolina that I thought was pretty successful is we actually did a TV show with the state superintendent that was open access where parents could call in. And so if you could, any conferences where you have, or any TV opportunities where you have where you have open access where parents can call in. I think by and large, all of our parents want to be good parents, and by giving them more resources and helping them with tools and resources for them to help their son or daughter, they want those kind of resources. So we've also done 1 year in Georgia when all they called them boot camps, when all the district superintendents met. We came in and actually talked about the research on summer loss and how they could use these tools and resources. So again, repetition of the message in multiple formats and then sustaining that message over time.
We have, it looks like, one more question, and that is concerning the math initiative and the Chief Summer Math Challenge utility. So it says, will this resource be available for grades 7 through 12 in the near future? And I'm going to pass that along to Dave.
Yeah, I hope so. This is certainly something that we would like to do. I think for this first summer, we're going to start with grades 3 through 6. That's where we feel we can have the most impact initially. And, you know, we'll see how that goes. And if all goes well and that the program is well received, we would certainly like to expand it in the future.
Any more questions? Or do you? Well, on behalf of MetaMetrics, I want to thank you for being here. I also want to, next steps, if you can contact Elizabeth Latanzio, she will help. And I actually, since she's pointing at me right now, I'm going to turn it over to her.
Yeah, so if you could contact me, my email and my number is right up there, and we can basically schedule a call. These calls usually take less than 30 minutes just to work out the details, and then we'll get started on customizing the materials and getting you everything you need for these initiatives. And if you have the time, please complete our summer reading survey. So this survey basically talks about the resources we're offering and ones we're thinking about in the future, and we really want to gauge your interest and only produce the most useful resources. So we'd love for you to participate in that survey. One other thing before we leave, we'd like to mention our upcoming webinars. So we have a webinar coming up on Valentine's Day. It's the text complexity in the Common Core. What does this mean for publishers? We have guest speaker Sue Pimentel. She's the co-author of Appendix A in the Common Core, and she will be speaking on our webinar. And we also have Matt Copeland. He's formerly with the Kansas Department of Ed, and he has joined the MetaMetrics family, and we're very happy about that, so he'll also be presenting. And then we have one on Pi Day that's Happy Pi Day, introducing the new quantiles.com. And the site, quantiles.com, has been completely redesigned, and we'd love for you to join us and hear all about it. And that one, again, will be March 14th from 3 to 4. And we're going to be sharing this PowerPoint and sharing these webinars information in our follow-up email, so we'll be able to click the link there and register. And then we also have an upcoming roundtable discussion. Roundtable discussions are closed to the public. They're just open to our states that report out Lexile and Quantile measures. So our upcoming roundtable discussion will be March 5th, and it will be how Lexile and Quantile measures are used to inform state-level work. And we have guest speakers from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and the Georgia Department of Education. We are so happy that you could join us today, and thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with many of you on these initiatives. Thank you.